back to Learn with the Doc. My name is Dr. Phillips from the Science Zone, and today we're going to look at pretty plant pigments. Pigments are the exciting chemicals that help photosynthesis, which we talked briefly about last time, happen. So let's review photosynthesis. So we have these amazing things called plants, which provide us with food. They provide us with a lot more too. We're going to learn about those today. But to review photosynthesis, we remember that plants get the energy that they need from solar energy. So plants take solar energy, carbon dioxide that's in the air, and water, which is typically taken up through the roots of the plant. These are the starting the reactants for photosynthesis. After photosynthesis is complete, it goes through a series of complex reactions. What ends up happening is the plant makes compounds such as glucose. You know this as blood sugar, but glucose is the building blocks for many different things in life, including most of the food that you get from plants. Okay, but it also produces oxygen as a waste product. Okay. So now we've got glucose, which can be put into long chains of starch that we can eat in our pancakes for breakfast. And then the plant has also produced oxygen as a waste product through photosynthesis. It's pretty convenient for us considering that we need oxygen to live and to complete cellular respiration. All right, now what we need to do is we need to look at a tiny thing inside of the cell called the chloroplast. So inside of the plant, there are cells, and cells are going to be what make up the plant. Thousands and thousands of cells, each one specialized to do a different job. Now, if we look right here, there's an amazing little thing called an organelle. So it's not an organ, but it's similar in that it's inside a cell and it does a specific job. You do not have chloroplasts, which means that you cannot use the sun to make energy, but plants can. So let's look at that chloroplast in a little more detail. So here we have the chloroplast. It's made up of a three-membrane system, and what we're really going to look at is the interaction of solar energy. So when the sun hits the chloroplast, it provides the energy that's needed to split water and create a cascade of events that lead to the production of different things like glucose. Okay. And we need to talk a little bit about light. When we talk about photosynthesis, we're going to be working only with visible light. If you've ever been inside and seen a reflection on the wall where you see a rainbow, what's happening is some piece of glass is acting as a prism, and it's separating out visible light into the different colors that make visible light. If we look at the spectrum of wavelength energy for light, you see that visible light only makes up a tiny little bit of the spectrum. And this visible light is what plants are using to get energy to complete photosynthesis. Okay, and the chloroplast has these amazing things called pigments that are going to allow the plant to capture this photo energy, so the energy from the visible light spectrum, and then use that to drive the process of photosynthesis. The main photosynthetic pigment that you find in plants is chlorophyll. So chlorophyll will actually absorb pretty much all of the colors of the rainbow except for green. Okay, it won't absorb the green wavelengths of light very well. And what that causes is a reflection of the green light, which your eye picks up. And that's why plants appear green. It's because the plants are not absorbing that green light super well, and that green light is reflected, and that's what your eyeballs pick up. And that's why plants appear green. Okay. There are other pigments inside of the chloroplast too. There are xanthophylls. Those are yellow. So they're going to absorb the green wavelengths that chlorophyll can't, but then they reflect the yellow light, and that's why those appear yellow. So when you look at fall colors, you start seeing yellow leaves. Okay. What's happened is that the photoperiod, meaning how much sunlight is available, is starting to decrease in the fall, and so is the temperature. And that signals deciduous plants, okay, to actually shut down photosynthesis or really slow it down over the winter, because that plant won't have enough water and it'll be too dry for that plant to survive. So they go dormant over the winter. So as they shut down photosynthesis, the amount of chlorophyll becomes less and less and less. And what that allows you to do is actually visualize the accessory pigments like xanthophylls, which are yellow. You don't usually see the yellow in a leaf because chlorophyll is the predominant photosynthetic pigment. Now we also have to talk about these things. Yep, carrots. Delicious carrots. Carrots have a photosynthetic pigment in them called carotenoids. These are orange, so they do not absorb the orange wavelength of light, they reflect it. But these things are amazing. So the carotenoid family actually is a precursor to vitamin A. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Okay. So your accessory pigments are going to absorb light that is in the green spectrum that chlorophyll can't. And what these accessory pigments do is they just increase the efficiency of the photosynthesis reaction. All right, now we're going to extract photosynthetic pigments from plants. At home, you'll do a simulation of this using a marker, but what we need to understand is paper chromatography. Paper chromatography is a type of test that is used to help dissolve the different pigments or the different colors in something, and it allows them to move up a filter based on their solubility in what's called a solvent. So a solvent is going to be anything that something dissolves into. Water is a great solvent, and that's what you'll use in your experiment today. What I'm going to demonstrate is pigment chromatography of plant pigments. My solvent is just plain rubbing alcohol that you find in your house. Isopropyl alcohol at 70%. So let's look at photosynthetic pigments in my favorite vegetable, spinach. To begin, I cut a strip of a coffee filter, and then I used a pencil to mark where I would place my sample. Notice that the pencil mark is high enough up that I can dip this strip into solvent without submerging the sample below the solvent level. Now I used a pencil to mark where I wanted to place the solvent because I know it won't dissolve in the solvent, and it would also show me where the solvent actually started. I used the line on the paper to help me estimate how much solvent I would need in my mason jar. The solvent that I used is just plain rubbing alcohol. So this is isopropyl alcohol that you can find at the grocery store, and it's a 70% solution. To prepare my chromatography strip, I pulled a fresh spinach leaf right out of my refrigerator. I folded the leaf in half, and then I used a penny to squish the leaf. That released all of the photosynthetic pigments that are contained within the leaf actually inside of the chloroplasts. So it pushed those pigments onto the coffee filter. To ensure I got plenty of pigments, I folded the leaf over again and squished some more. Once I had a thin line of spinach juice, I placed the strip into the jar and allowed the solvent to move up the strip until it stopped moving. Let's look at the results. Let's look at our chromatography strip. This is after I've allowed the solvent to migrate as far up the strip as it will move. Let's see what pigments we can find. So look here. I see 4 different colors. Now if we look at the very, very top, it's the letter A, you see a very thin line of orange. Okay? This is carotene. Okay? The carotenoids are found most predominantly in things like carrots. It's actually where carrots get their name, is the carotenoid pigments that are there. But you find carotenoids in lots of other vegetables too, including spinach. So you've probably heard that carrots are really good for your eyes, and that's because they have vitamin A in them. Okay, well, vitamin A is actually very similar to the carotenoids. When those carotenoids get into your body, they're actually converted into vitamin A, which helps your eyes. Okay? There's also vitamin A in spinach. So when your mom tells you to eat your vegetables, she actually knows what she's talking about. Yep, those are tasty. Okay, let's look down the chromatography strip a little bit more. If we look at B, you see that this is mostly yellow. These are the xanthophyll pigments that are also contained in the spinach leaf. If we look down even further, you see 2 shades of green, so C and D. These are 2 different types of chlorophyll. They absorb slightly different wavelengths of light, but they both do the same thing. Now remember that all of these pigments are helping to absorb the visible wavelength of light to make sure that photosynthesis is as efficient as possible. Now let's look at chlorophyll a little closer. Chlorophyll also has the element magnesium in it. Up right there. Now, besides being an awesome element on the periodic table of elements, it's also a very important mineral that's going to help support heart health, nerve function, and a whole bunch of other things inside of your body. So please make sure you're listening to Mom when she tells you to eat your vegetables. They have great pigments like beta carotene. It'll help your eyes. And then our green friends have magnesium in them, and that's really important for your heart. You'll need a coffee filter for your experiment and a marker. Your kit came with some kind of marker that's water soluble. It doesn't matter what color it is. For this demonstration, I'm going to use a vis-a-vis overhead marker. So this is a wet dry erase marker. Trace the inner circle of your coffee filter with your marker. You want a thick line, but not so thick that it might go below the surface to the solvent. Fill in any gaps. And then what you'll do is you'll fold your filter into a cone. But first, you want to make sure that you label your coffee filter with what it was. So fold it in half, half once more, and then one more time to make a triangle. Aha, there we go. Then you'll need a small clear container that you'll fill with just plain water, plain tap water. So fill it up just a little bit, but not enough to where it's going to hit the line of your chromatography experiment. Take your filter and then separate the pieces so that it makes a cone. and then gently place it into the water. Remember, you don't want your line below the water's surface. Once your water has completed moving up the filter, so that means that the solvent has migrated as far as it will, carefully remove the filter from the cup and place it flat on a surface to dry. Once it's dry, you can count the different colors that make up that ink that is found in the marker. How many different colors do you think you'll find in your marker? I'll be curious to see. Thanks for tuning in for our series, Learn with the Doc. And remember, don't forget to eat your vegetables. We'll see you next time.